Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. This one means a lot to me, as the Suikoden series is probably the one game that influenced me the most growing up. Not only that, but then there's the recent passing of series creator Yoshitaka Murayama, which hit myself and many other fans hard. The fact that he poured his heart and soul into this dream project but isn't able to see how it's received is just tragic. To me, Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is the Suikoden VI that we'll never get. I remember the moment the Kickstarter went live back in 2020. To me, it was not just another game. For me, it was probably the most important game that could ever be announced. It goes without saying that I emptied my wallet as much as I possibly could to back this project as fast as humanly possible. The month that followed the announcement was like living a Suikoden game, constantly logging on to see how the backers have grown and the new stretch goals that were gradually revealed. The community truly were coming together, which, when you think about it, is what Suikoden is all about. So, as a writer of this review, am I biased? Damn right I am, how could I not be? But I'm also honest, so along with all of the great things that Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes does, I'm still going to be able to point out some of the weaker points. Before we get into this review, if you liked this video, hit that like button and sub for more JRPG, Suikoden and Eiyuden Chronicle content coming soon. You can also hit that super thanks if you'd like to support the channel. I'd also like to thank the publishers for the early review code, and all footage that you see is from the PS5 version of the game. Alright, let's get into it. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is designed to recapture the love we all had for the Suikoden series. This not only includes all of the incredible mechanics, but also the retroness. The visuals here are pretty decent and really helps recreate that PS1 feel. The sprite work is absolutely fantastic, with a style that recaptures the visual magic of Suikoden 2. The character art is absolutely perfect too, but I wouldn't expect anything less from Junko Kawano. The environments and the world map also recapture this retro feel. These grew on me as I progressed through the game, but they aren't at the detail and quality of some similar HD sprite titles like Octopath Traveler 2. Something that I'm unsure of is the blur used to create a depth of field. Sometimes this blur can be an overkill, so it would have been nice to be able to adjust it. In the PC version, you can turn this off, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to in the PS5 version down the track. Something that I've always loved about the Suikoden series is its soundtracks, particularly Suikoden 1 and 2, which were composed by Miki Higashino. While she unfortunately didn't join the team for Eiyuden Chronicle, the music was in good hands with industry veterans Motoi Sakuraba and Michiko Naruke. From the epic battle themes to the field tunes, it all sounds great, with the main vocal theme being particularly memorable. Now, having over 100 characters in an RPG is one thing, but voicing them all to match their personalities is a task that not too many games have to deal with. I really love the English voice acting here and acknowledge how much work would have gone onto this. Eiyuden Chronicle is also a rare example of a game that employs accents depending on the character's origins. There are so many characters from every corner of the globe, and I love how the accents reflect this.
I'm Lieutenant Sane Kessling of Galdia's 1st Imperial Army. I'll be leading one team on the co-expedition.
Awful young to be a lieutenant, ain't ya? You some noble kid?
I also didn't mind the fact that the regular NPCs don't have voices, but I was a bit disappointed that the character banter when exploring is also just text. You have to read what they're saying down at the bottom of the screen, and this can be really easy to miss. Overall, I was very happy with the majority of Eiyuden Chronicle's presentation, but when it comes to performance, the game does struggle at times with frequent frame rate drops. Word out there is that the Switch version is a lot worse, so I would definitely choose an alternate platform if possible. Also worth noting is that the base version of Eiyuden Chronicle came with a few significant bugs, but the major ones have been addressed in a recent patch, so just make sure you're up to date when you play. This game is absolutely playable and thoroughly enjoyable, but I do look forward to all of the little issues being patched out in the future. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is set in a region of Oloran. Just like each entry of the Suikoden series, we only get to see a portion of what is a much greater world. The entire story revolves around rune lenses, which are magical objects that provide various benefits for its users. The Galdian Empire has found a way to amplify the power of these rune lenses, which has led to them scouring the continent for the incredibly rare primal lenses to expand their power even further. Yeah, these primal lenses sound a lot like true runes. The game begins with Noah from the League of Nations teaming up with Sane from the Galdian Empire on a joint expedition to hunt down one of these primal lenses. This is the start of what will become an epic journey, and I wouldn't have it any other way. In terms of pacing, the game does start off quite slow. Not quite Suikoden V slow, but still slow nonetheless. I mean, the game begins with Noah joining a group called The Watch, tasked to take on various quests for clients. Classic JRPG trope right there. But eventually, as you would expect, the magic happens. The region is thrown into war and it doesn't slow down. The traditional Suikoden formula is here. Noah finds himself playing a key role in the war, starting off with a small resistance army with seemingly no hope of winning, then obtaining a HQ, gaining allies, and expanding his army into one capable of taking on the mighty Empire. I thought the story was really good and had some genuinely really awesome moments. However, it didn't quite reach the highs of the stronger Suikoden games, which, let's be honest, is not an easy thing to do. For example, the relationship between Noah and Sane clearly paralleled that of Rue and Joey. However, I didn't feel that the relationship was able to fully establish itself prior to them taking their own different paths. Eiyuden Chronicle also has an E10 rating, and I did feel that this lack of maturity in the writing held certain moments back quite a bit. There is still plenty of tragedy, but its impact is nowhere near where it could have been due to this child-friendly delivery. But one of my favourite things about the Suikoden series is how the games are interconnected, and it makes me so happy that the developers have stated that they plan on creating sequels for the series. And if you are out of the loop, we have already received a prequel spin-off titled Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. This introduced us to the world and some of the characters, and this is definitely worth checking out if you enjoy this game. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is called 100 Heroes for a reason. You can recruit over 100 characters to fight for your cause. I really took a liking to the main cast. Let's take Liane for instance, who plays the traditional role of the young female sidekick. Her light-hearted nature and constant jokes made me laugh more times than I could count, and her dialogue and relationships with Gar and Noah was always entertaining. The dialogue is consistently brilliant, making every interaction thoroughly enjoyable. There are a few vocal people out there who've complained about the localization. Sure, it isn't perfect, but I still feel they did a really decent job. Now, I am fully aware that it's not possible to give each and every character a deep and complex backstory in one single game. I will say, however, that the many minor characters that you encounter and recruit along the way have all been very well designed. There are some really quirky characters, like Francesca, who seems like a shy, timid young lady until someone pisses her off. Her lines in battle are just hilarious too. Eiyuden Chronicle also employed a few techniques to ensure that these minor characters feel like they're part of the story. For starters, you can have 3 attendant slots in your party. What this means is that characters who you need to take along for story purposes can be placed there rather than taking up slots in your main 6. This allows you to fight alongside whoever you want, whenever you want. Secondly, minor characters who are currently in your party will often have voice dialogue during key scenes. What they say isn't exactly important, but just having them constantly interact with the situation makes them feel like they actually belong. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes feels like the traditional JRPGs that we loved, but with some modern improvements. Some people will love this retroness, but others may struggle with certain things. Unlike the regular exploration that has a fixed camera, the world map gives us full camera rotation from an isometric view. Exploration on the world map is very standard, as it was in past Suikoden games. You can see all the locations on the mini-map with next to nothing to collect or secrets to find, save for some fishing points and the occasional item. Exploration is much better when it comes to the towns and the dungeons. There are loads of towns, all with their own charm, and you will constantly be travelling between them if you want to recruit everyone. It's also worth talking to all of the NPCs, as they'll often give you unique recipes or books. I thought the dungeons were pretty well done. Some of these can be pretty lengthy, and if you're into puzzle solving, then Eiyuden Chronicle's dungeons will be right up your alley. Most of the main dungeons have their own unique gimmick, but at times it can get a little bit annoying when you're trying to keep track of things only to be hit with a random encounter. Yep, random encounters are perhaps the retroest thing of all. And while I would have preferred enemies appearing on the map, the encounter rate is actually quite low, and with the equipment that reduces it even more, it was hardly an issue. There's also no fast travel for the first 12 hours or so there is a fair bit of backtracking if you need to return to town or your HQ. Of course, eventually you'll run into Vicky version 2.0 who can warp you anywhere, and it was at this point of the game that my enjoyment went up big time. The core combat system looks and feels a lot like Suikoden 2, which is a really good thing and really contributed to my eternal nostalgia for the series. You can take 6 characters into battle with 3 characters in the front row and 3 in the back. The short, medium and long range refers to which row they can attack from and which enemy row they can attack. To help make each character unique, each character has a type of defensive action. This could be something simple like reducing damage, or something more suited to faster characters like increasing their evasion for a few rounds. Another important addition is the inclusion of a turn order, which makes it much easier to plan out your future actions. This is particularly useful since you need to input all of your character actions at the start of the round. Aside from regular attacks and defensive options, characters can also use their rune lenses in battle, which is similar to the runes of old. Depending on the rune lens, these will either consume SP, which restores each turn, or consume MP, which is restored at the end or through using items. Equipping different rune lenses to your characters is the primary way of customizing them for battle, as more rune lens slots will open up as their level increases. At the start of the game, the battles will seem very basic and character progression will be quite slow, but once more rune lens slots open up, you'll be given lots more flexibility and options in battle. Now, one of the staples of the Suikoden series was the Unite attacks. Here, they make a return as hero combos. These can be performed when related characters are in the same party and consume different amounts of SP, so you can't just spam them every turn. I always found myself looking at which hero combos were available when setting up my party. Most of the random battles you get in are pretty standard, and it didn't take long to realize that most of them don't require much thought. And this is where auto-attacking comes in, which is what I chose 99% of the time during these random battles. The big new feature here is that you can customize different tactics and set priorities when you do select auto. This is a good idea, even if I had no idea what most of the priorities actually meant, as the titles were far too vague. I also would have liked a way to alternate between different setups in battle depending on my enemy or the situation. While random battles are all about auto-attacking, things are completely different when it comes to boss fights, which is where things get really interesting. Many of these fights have multiple stages with their own gimmick that requires interaction with the environment. For example, in this fight, you can use the tank to attack for massive damage every 3 turns. These gimmicks make the boss fights all very memorable and really allow the combat system to shine. One issue that I did have here was with the balancing, and I'm not talking about certain characters being more effective than others in battle. The entire magic system is a lot weaker than I would have liked. I mean, most of the time, a mage's regular attack does more damage than a mid-level magic spell. Many of the hero combos also seem to do less damage than individual attacks would do. I am really hoping for a balancing patch soon to help fix these issues. Finally, in terms of difficulty, I played the game on normal and felt that this setting was in line with what normal should be. There were some challenging fights early in the game, but it did ease up as the game went on. For those wanting more of a challenge, you can select hard mode, which also comes with a bunch of modifiers such as preventing healing through items. Just keep in mind that you can drop the difficulty at any time, but you cannot increase it. If you know anything about the Suikoden series, you'll be well aware of the multiple combat systems on offer. 100 Heroes also features 1 vs 1 duels and large-scale wars. The duels work pretty much the same as you'd expect, where you'll make your move based on what the enemy says. This time, however, it's just attack or counter, with the option to break the enemy once the tension gauge is high enough. While I do miss the paper rock scissors mechanics of old, these 1 vs 1 duels are better than they've ever been, not only due to the new mechanics, but also because they're fully voiced. This, and the fact that they can take place through multiple settings, goes so far in making them feel more immersive and epic. Next, we have the large-scale war battles. From the outside, these appear to work a lot like those in Suikoden 2, except that it's really a lot simpler this time around. The battlefields and animations all look massive, but there's really not many options in terms of movement or engagement. The grids feel really small, and this holds the system back quite a bit. Most of the strategy will come from unit composition and selecting the right skills to use. When you do engage the enemy, you'll actually get to see the entire war play out with hundreds of troops, and this makes the wars feel epic, even if I had no idea what I should be looking at. The wars aren't completely horrible, but they're just not as enjoyable as they were in past Suikoden games. I think my favourite thing about the Suikoden series is getting and expanding your own HQ, and in Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, it is better than it's ever been. It took me about 7 hours to get access to the headquarters, which really felt like no time at all. Shortly later, pure emotion spilled over me when I was asked to name my castle. I haven't done this for the first time since 2005, nearly 20 years ago. Dragoon Castle, it's back baby! Except that it's not, as you can only choose predetermined names. I went with Lionheart Castle, which does sound pretty cool, but I really don't understand this naming restriction, especially because your chosen name isn't even spoken by the voice actors. But on the bright side, this HQ is incredible, and the major reason is because you can actually choose what to upgrade with a HQ skill tree. If you have the correct character recruited and the resources required, you'll be able to select that addition to your castle. Just as it was in the past, I was always so motivated to rush back to my HQ after recruiting a character to see what they would offer. Speaking of recruiting characters, this requires quite a bit of effort, with most of them having some sort of requirement, such as delivering them an item or being at a certain level. Fortunately, there is a character that you can recruit that gives you hints to locate these characters, which was very necessary. Said character can also provide more info on each character, which is something that I love, as I try to invest myself into as much lore and learn as much about the characters as I possibly could. I've also got to make mention to the minigames. They are back and better than ever before. Most of these have quite a bit of depth to them, such as the card game, which features hundreds of different cards to build into your deck. And I was so excited to see the cooking contest finally make a return. I mean, I've only been waiting 25 years.
What?
Back in 2020, it really felt like that Suikoden itch that we've had for the past 15 years would never be scratched. Then Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes was announced, and everything changed. I backed this game wanting a Suikoden experience, and that is exactly what I got. 100 Heroes is a love letter to us fans, and it feels exactly how a modern, retro Suikoden title should. Everything we loved about the series is back, with much of it better than ever before. I loved the story, and while it didn't reach the heights of some of the other Suikoden games, I am so pumped for more and can't wait to see where this series is taken next. Meeting and recruiting the 100 plus characters was also a highlight for me. The visual designs, voice acting, and dialogue was all top tier. The same can also be said about the soundtrack, which was really great. We also have a pure evolution of Suikoden 2's combat system. Sure, it's not as complex as some other turn-based systems out there, but it still has plenty of significant additions that make it a blast to play. This is especially evident with the boss fights. It's just a shame that there were some balancing issues, which is something that really needs to be patched in the future. Something else that was a massive step forward is the HQ. The design here is great, but it's the new HQ expansion tree system that really sets it aside from other games in the Suikoden series. But even while looking through my nostalgia goggles, it's hard to ignore the performance issues and the bugs. Yes, the major ones have already been addressed, with more on the way, but I experienced them on my playthrough, and you'll probably experience some minor ones too. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is a game for Suikoden fans. If that's you, then I could not recommend this game enough. If this isn't you, then you're still in for a quality retro style RPG, just without the nostalgia. Before I wrap it up, another huge thank you goes to Yoshitaka Murayama and the rest of the team for giving us exactly what we wanted. His legacy in both Suikoden and Eiyuden will live on forever. What did you think of Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes? Do you agree with what I said? Let me know in the comments below. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, it would help me out a lot to hit that like button and sub for more RPG and Eiyuden Chronicle content coming soon. See you next time.